저는 만 5살에 바이올린을 시작했는데요. 바이올린 소리를 워낙 좋아했어서 그 특유의 따뜻함과 약간 사람의 목소리 같은 목소리를 갖고 있거든요, 바이올린이. 저는 무대에 올랐을 때보다는 이제 혼자 연습할 때 더 큰 희열을 느끼는데, 제가 표현하고자 하는 음악이 잘 나왔을 때 그때 가장 큰 기쁨을 느끼는 것 같아요. 그래서 저만의 색깔을 어떻게 하면 찾아갈 수 있을까, 그걸 제일 많이 고민하는 것 같아요. 아무래도 연습을 할 때는 이제 생각과 고민을 많이 하는 반면에 무대에서 연주할 때는 정말 머릿속을 비우고 아무 생각도 안 하려고 하는 것 같아요. 무대에서는 자유롭게, 콩쿨 무대도 저만의 독주라고 생각하는 자세를 가지려고 하고 있어요. 사실 바이올린과는 거의 제 인생의 대부분을 같이 해왔기 때문에 저를 힘들게 할 때도 많지만 제가 가장 사랑하고 아끼는 존재입니다. 작곡가가 전달하고 싶은 메시지와 또 제 자신이 관객들에게 전달하고 싶은 메시지를 모두 다 설득력 있게 잘 전달할 수 있는 그런 연주자가 되고 싶습니다.
우와, 엄청 크다. 손 크네. 태권도 원! 하! 하!
아직까지는 쉽네. 잠깐만, 너 안 쉬워.
힘드는데?
held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the status UN summit.
A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
U.S. Treasury chief says Washington is close to finalizing a trade deal with South Korea, saying he expects it to happen in the next 10 days. Senior Korean officials are now heading to the U.S. for follow-up trade negotiations. A response team sent by the South Korean government is now in Cambodia as Seoul works to address recent kidnapping and confinement crimes targeting South Koreans there. The government also raised its travel advisory, banning travel to certain parts of the Southeast Asian country. South Korean stocks opened higher again this morning, and the benchmark KOSPI climbed above the 3,700 mark for the first time during intraday trading. Hello and thanks for joining our noon edition of Arirang News. We begin today with trade talks between South Korea and the United States, which appears to be reaching its final stage as officials on both sides suggest a deal is imminent. Negotiators from Seoul are in Washington this week, working to iron out the remaining details. Our Buniran reports.
Top South Korean officials expressed a positive outlook on trade talks with Washington ahead of follow-up negotiations. Speaking to reporters at Incheon Airport on Thursday, Kim Yong-bum, presidential chief of policy, shared his views on recent U.S. commentary signaling that negotiations are coming to a close.
With the U.S. Treasury and Commerce Departments communicating together more closely than before, we are viewing this positively.
Kim Jong-wan, Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy, added that details are still being finalized, but misunderstandings have been largely resolved. He also stressed that negotiations must meet national interests.
I believe it is far more important that any outcome aligns with our national interests and the understanding of our citizens.
This follows remarks from U.S. President Donald Trump, who said that South Korea signed a deal to make an upfront payment to invest in the United States. Speaking to reporters at the White House on Wednesday local time, Trump added that Japan pledged $650 billion and South Korea $350 billion. In reality, Japan's investment commitment stands at $550 billion, and Seoul has already pushed back on the idea of a direct cash payment, warning it could trigger financial instability. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent remarked that he expects something from trade talks with Seoul to come within the next 10 days, as they are in the process of ironing out the details. When asked whether the U.S. is willing to offer South Korea an unlimited currency swap, he drew a line, saying it is a matter for the Federal Reserve. However, he added that if he were the Fed chair, South Korea would already have a currency swap facility similar to Singapore's. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And heads of South Korea's major conglomerates are also heading to the United States this week at the invitation of SoftBank Group Chairman Masayoshi Son. During the gathering, they'll discuss cooperation on the massive $500 billion Stargate project, which aims to build a nationwide AI data center network in partnership with OpenAI and Oracle. Samsung's Lee Jae-yong and Hyundai's Chung Hee-sun, currently in Japan for a trilateral economic dialogue, are expected to travel to the United States soon. SK Group's Choi Tae-won will reportedly depart on Thursday, and LG's Koo Kwang-mo is also expected to join. Their visit will coincide with a Washington trip by senior Korean officials for follow-up tariff negotiations. Industry watchers say the business leaders' presence could help strengthen Korea's bargaining position by showcasing new U.S. investment plans. And concerns are rising following the recent death of a Korean college student who was tortured by an organized crime gang in Cambodia. The South Korean government now estimates that around 1,000 Koreans are involved in so-called job scams in the country. In response, it has now raised the travel advisory level, including banning travel to certain regions, and has dispatched a joint response team to the area. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
A joint response team dispatched by the government arrived in Cambodia on Wednesday to respond to recent kidnapping and confinement crimes targeting South Koreans. The team, led by Second Vice Foreign Minister Kim Jin-ah, spoke to reporters upon arrival at Techo International Airport.
We will visit the Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Interior and Online Scam Response Committee, and by engaging with high-level officials, we will discuss more specific and proactive solutions to this situation.
South Korea is also stepping up efforts to bring back some 60 nationals detained by Cambodian authorities in connection with job scams. National Security Advisor Wee Sung-nak said Wednesday that the government aims to repatriate them by this weekend. According to Wee, around 60 Korean suspects are currently being held by Cambodian law enforcement after a crackdown on illegal job networks. Separately, the Foreign Ministry says roughly 80 Koreans are either missing or their safety cannot be confirmed. Meanwhile, a South Korean woman in her 30s was found dead near the Vietnam-Cambodia border on October 8th. Local police say an autopsy found no signs of foul play, but authorities are investigating the circumstances of her death. The woman had reportedly been confined at a hotel by a phishing scam group in Cambodia. South Korean police believe she may have been linked to a local voice phishing organization and could have died while returning to Cambodia under the group's orders. In response to the string of incidents in Cambodia, Seoul's foreign ministry is imposing stricter travel restrictions to curb the growing job scam crisis. Starting Thursday, a level 4 travel ban, the highest on the 4-tier scale, will take effect for Cambodia's Bokor Mountain region in Kampot province, as well as the cities of Bavat and Poipet. Authorities warn that anyone who travels to or remains in areas under the level 4 ban could face legal penalties under the Passport Act. Other regions already under special advisories will maintain their current alert levels, while the rest of Cambodia will be raised from level 1 to level 2, signaling increased caution for Korean travelers. These moves highlight the government's urgency in responding to a widening transnational crime crisis that has ensnared hundreds of Koreans in Southeast Asia. 이승재, Arirang News.
Korean stocks are on a rally, with the KOSPI today climbing past the 3,700 mark for the first time, hitting a new intraday high of 3,721 points as of 10 a.m., surpassing Wednesday's record close. Samsung Electronics shares also hit an all-time high, surpassing the 97,000 Korean won mark during trading. According to the Korea Exchange, Samsung Electronics last recorded an intraday all-time high more than 4 years ago on January 11, 2021, when it touched 96,800 Korean won. And President Lee Jae-myung has once again said that cutting red tape is the key to South Korea's economic recovery.
네, 대기 관료화되면 그런 게 있죠. 이제 편하게. 또 고정관념, 기성관념에 의해서 권한 행사를 하게 되고 그게 이제 현장에서는 큰 족쇄로 작용하는 경우도 있습니다. 필요한 규제는 강화하고 불필요하거나 꼭 필요하지 않은 규제는 완화 또는 철폐하는.
The president made the remarks on Thursday while presiding over his administration's second open debate on regulatory reform, joined by ministers, business leaders, and experts. The 2-hour discussion centered on easing regulations in the biotech, energy, and culture sectors, such as speeding up South Korea's lengthy drug approval process. And meanwhile, the administration has also unveiled another set of measures to stabilize the overheated housing market in the capital region. Now, the regulations are set to put all Seoul districts in speculative zones starting today, along with stricter mortgage rules. Our Park Jun-an explains more.
After introducing loan restrictions in June and a housing supply plan in September, the South Korean government on Wednesday announced the third phase of its housing stabilization measures. Starting Thursday, all 25 Seoul districts and 12 regions in Gyeonggi-do province where investment is actively concentrated will be considered zones subject to regulations. The plan has been introduced to prioritize residential stability by balancing both demand and supply. To ensure housing stability, the government will manage the real estate market in a balanced manner, considering both supply and demand, while imposing actual residency requirements for home purchases and strengthening regulations on loans and taxation. Those include new loan-to-value ratio rules for the 37 affected regions, which will be lowered from the current 70% to 40%, meaning homebuyers must provide at least 60% of the purchase price in cash. Also, a new mortgage limit will be implemented when borrowing money. The money a buyer could borrow can range anywhere between 200 million won to 600 million won. If someone wants to buy a house that is worth 1.5 billion won, the maximum amount of money they could leverage is 600 million won. If someone wants to buy a house that is worth 1.5 billion won, the maximum amount of money they could leverage is 600 million won. However, the mortgage limit will be capped at 400 million Korean won for homes valued at over 1.5 billion and up to 2.5 billion. Lastly, the cap will be fixed at 200 million won for those above 2.5 billion. Under the new regulation, as the value of a purchased house increases, the maximum loan amount permitted decreases, effectively lowering the loan-to-value ratio. The government plans to carefully review real estate tax reforms while stepping up measures to curb illegal transactions and speculative demand, aiming to restore order in the housing market. Park Junan, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the Korean economy continues to face weak growth in overall production, largely attributed to a contraction in the construction sector. But the general trend consumption appears to be improving. Now, this assessment comes from the Korea Development Institute's latest monthly economic green book released on Thursday. Manufacturing indicators improved as continued growth in passenger car retail sales is driving a surge in motor vehicle output. Other retail sales also showed a gradual easing of weakness, supported by lower interest rates and government consumption support measures. Meanwhile, downside risks to economic activity persist amid global trade uncertainties driven by the recent escalation of tensions between the United States and China. In other news, South Korea's top court has ordered that the high-profile divorce case involving SK Group chairman Choi Tae-won and his estranged wife Do So-young be sent back to the High Court. On Thursday morning, the Supreme Court overturned a Seoul High Court ruling that had ordered Choi to pay around 1.3 trillion Korean won, or about $980 million in asset division, the largest in South Korea's history, and remanded the case. The court ruled that the 30 billion Korean won, roughly $21 million, that Do received from her late father, former President Roh Tae-woo, cannot be considered part of her contribution in the property division.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In Washington, the U.S. government shutdown has stretched into its third week, with lawmakers still deadlocked over spending and health care. Analysts warn the standoff is beginning to cloud the global economic outlook. Wednesday's ninth failed Senate vote left federal workers unpaid and vital services frozen. Key indicators like the monthly jobs report and inflation data are delayed, leaving policymakers and investors without accurate numbers. Analysts compare the disruption to a major storm, with each week shaving about 0.2 percentage points or $15 billion off quarterly growth. Looking ahead, the longer Washington remains gridlocked, the greater the risk that the U.S. data blackout becomes a drag on worldwide growth. U.S. President Donald Trump has confirmed that he authorized the CIA to operate inside Venezuela, calling it a response to drug trafficking and migrant releases by President Nicolas Maduro's government. Speaking at the White House on Wednesday, Trump said U.S. forces have already carried out 5 raids at sea, killing 27 people, and that Washington is now looking at land operations. The announcement marks a rare public acknowledgement of a covert directive and a sharp escalation of pressure on Caracas. Meanwhile, Maduro's government has ordered military drills and vowed to defend Venezuela against aggression. Trump has deployed warships, a submarine, and fighter jets to the Caribbean as part of his anti-narcotics campaign. Global carbon dioxide levels are at its highest ever recorded, rising by 3.5 parts per million from 2023 to 2024, the sharpest annual increase since measurements began in 1957. The World Meteorological Organization says the surge is driven by fossil fuel burning and wildfires, especially across South America. Officials warn the heat trapped by greenhouse gases is turbocharging the planet and fueling more extreme weather. Methane and nitrous oxide have also hit record highs, while the planet's natural carbon sinks. Forests, land, and oceans are losing their ability to absorb emissions. WMO says the Amazon's trees, stressed by drought and heat, are now struggling to photosynthesize, a sign that nature's defenses are faltering. 주지현, 아리랑 뉴스.
We had some picture-perfect autumn weather in the capital area yesterday, but it did not last long with evening showers. Well, more rain has been with us through the morning, then it will finally clear up by the afternoon, but I would still keep an umbrella handy just in case. The thick clouds have kept the temperatures on the warmer side for the past few weeks, but things will get much colder once the rain lets up on Sunday, going down below season norms in most areas. And this afternoon, central regions will have temperatures a few degrees lower today, topping out at 23 degrees in Seoul and Daejeon, but Gwangju still warm at 27 degrees under cloudy skies in most regions. Then get ready for another round. Rain will restart on Friday night over the central and Jeollado regions, then spread nationwide by Saturday morning. So we'll have on and off rain until Saturday afternoon. Then we can finally expect some clear skies to appear on Sunday with a sharp drop in temperatures.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
Layer the Peak.